The collection, both in terms of textiles and dress, gives you a really good idea of changing tastes, changing fashions, and what you see on display in the museum is just a very tiny fraction of the large collection that we have, and our collection spans a long period of time. My name is Shelley Tobin. I'm an assistant curator at RAMM and I'm responsible for the collection of textiles and dress. In this store, which is hanging storage for dresses and suits, we have 12 bays here behind me of women's clothing dating from the 18th century to the 1980s. Here in the 3 bays in front of us here are all the men's things. I think that tells you a little bit about collections really, and how men's things tend not to survive in such great quantity as women's clothing. So we have quite a large collection of boots and shoes, and because these shelves are quite deep, there's not just one layer of shoes here. If I remove this rather nice pair of blue 19th century boots, you can see there's another layer of shoes behind that box. So we have quite a variety. One of our earliest pieces in the collection is a 17th century shoe, so it dates from between 1630 and 1650. This particular shoe is made of leather, but it's the whiteness of the shoe that tells you this is somebody who is not going to be a working person. They're not going to be tramping about in the mud every day. So the slap sole has a leather sole which extends here, and the idea was that would protect the heel. It was a little bit mucky, for instance, they wouldn't get their heel dirty, it wouldn't sink in the mud. If you have a look at portraits of the period, you'll see both men and women wearing this type of shoe. We have some clothes in the collection that belong to Queen Victoria. There is a bodice and skirt in typical black silk. Everybody knows she was in mourning for Albert and wore black from the time of his death for the rest of her life. This silk gown tells us a little bit about her person when she was in her 70s, towards the end of her life. So apart from just a touch of this very fine white silk gauze fabric, everything is black, very fine black silk. And then this narrow piece here is a very fine piece of crepe. Crepe was the classic trimming for mourning dress. And there are all sorts of little allowances made for somebody who suffered from rheumatism. So all of her bodices, the top part of her gowns, fastened at the centre front with buttons. They were easy to take on and off. So the Queen didn't have a lot of boning in her gown. Of course, women at this time were wearing corsets, which were usually heavily boned with often whale bone. But the Queen just has 2 pieces here at the front, and then there would have been pieces here just to keep the shape of the garment. And to make it easier for her, there is a fine silk tape inside a ribbon really, which would have been tied around her waist to stop everything slipping. Somebody's cut the end off at one point. And there's a little weighted piece here to back the lace. We also have a white linen nightgown trimmed with handmade lace, which belonged to Queen Victoria. Just at the bottom is her monogram, VR, with the crown above it. The number, this is number 45 of her 90s. But rather dramatically, it seems to have blood on it. There are some blood stains there, and we don't really know. We've not analysed it, so we don't know if it's hers or how it's come to be blood stained. Probably what did happen is because the nightdress was soiled, it was discarded, so it was given away to a lady in waiting or somebody else in service of the Queen, and that's how it's ended being passed down to us. At the other end of the scale, we also have some great things dating from the 1960s. So this is a dress made in about 1963 for the Hollywood actress Vivien Leigh. This is couture. We don't know exactly who made it, but it's gorgeous silk with a lace bodice. But you might just be able to pick up there's some stitching here. Her daughter decided that she would like to wear this dress herself, and so she did have it let out a little bit. This one by Jane and Jane is an early example of the work of Scottish designer Muir, who is very, very much respected. This is quite heavy linen, this dress, and you see it has a sort of Pierrot collar with this ruffle in a fine gauzy fabric. And this time, this garment up down there is by Mary Quant. It's from her Ginger group. These days we call it a diffusion line, but it's her ready-to-wear line, so that people could afford Mary Quant's style. And you can see that it's a very similar shape dress, and it makes me wonder which one came first, Jean Muir or Mary Quant. We have a collections team which meets periodically, and if anybody offers, as they quite often do, something new for us to acquire for the museum collection, then I will take along as much information as I can gather about that object and take it to the team meeting, and we all decide as a team whether we're going to accept an object or not. If it doesn't have a really great provenance connecting it to the city of Exeter, then it's unlikely that we would be able to accept it in the collection, because we already have so many. I never get bored with this. I absolutely love it. This has been my life for over 30 years now. It's always exciting to share those things and to see people's reactions to them. And I get the same buzz from that as I do from opening a box and finding something really amazing inside.